Trying Night special guest exclusive podcast right here on the TryingCatNight.org website. Folks, today is March 22nd, 2021. I hope you all are having a very wonderful and blessed day as always. We continue to keep the programming moving along Monday through Saturday. Typically 3 or 4 guests on every day. On rare occasions, it's 5+ podcasts. And today is going to be one of those days. So you've got an awful lot to sit down and sort through in regards to podcasts, folks. We just finished up with Mike from Restoring the Faith. And we are now picking up with Trad Cat Night follower and traditional Catholic Ray McConnell. And Ray's going to be sharing sort of his journey, his finding of Trad Cat Night. We'll be talking Vatican II. I'm sure we'll be getting into COVID, maybe weeding through some of the names in the traditionalist world, getting his perspectives on. And we're going to do that here in just a moment, folks. And I'm going to encourage everyone, as Ray has stepped up to the plate as a Trad Cat Night member. I want to see more people step up to the plate. At least I'm hoping. So please contact me if you want to join me for a podcast. We all have skills in certain areas, or we're more proficient in one area than another. So bring that to the table and step up and send me an email, and we'll get you scheduled for April, folks. So reach on out to me to apostleofmary@hotmail.com. Don't forget about the web conferences. You can pick up all 7 now, folks, for a $25 gift donation. We just had a fantastic web conference, Lenten special, if you will, Prayer, Penance, and the Passion, featuring some of the top Catholic names that you've seen. So if you want to pick up a copy, contact me. Don't forget about Trad Cat Night being on all these new social media platforms, Gab, the MeWe's, the Brighteons, BitChutes, and all of that. So be sure to subscribe and follow along. And I want to thank all those who recently reached out and helped on the donation level. If you can, please continue to support this outlet. If you can't imagine a day without TCK and you had to go to LifeSite News every day, or I'm really not even sure what other option really does something on a daily basis. Like, I mean, I guess if you want to classify Dr. Taylor Marshall or what's his face, like Patrick Coffin or whatnot, I don't really know of anyone doing anything on a regular basis. Certainly not 3 or 4 programs a day. But if you can't imagine a day without TCK, please do help out. Hopefully it doesn't sound too PBN-ish, your public broadcasting network, but it keeps me with the ability to do this work full time. And before we get to Ray, we just got to make mention of our sponsors very, very briefly. We've got plentyofwellness.com. They are a leading CBD company. CBD is not marijuana, folks. Does not have psychoactive properties. It's actually been recommended to me for my neurological syndrome by a few Catholic doctors, but haven't gone down that route. But if you feel this is something you want to take a look into, plenty-wellness.com should be number 1 on your list. We also have to make mention of John Deeds, jacksberry.com. John's a great guy. Just heard from him this morning. He's doing good. Get on over there today. Get to know him a little bit better. He's got numerous websites, but this is his main one. He's got a 7 Sorrows of Mary section with a Father Voigt reflection. Father Voigt is scheduled to be on the program here, too, in a little bit. So get on over there today. Jacksbury, that's BURY.com. David Bain and his Genesis Apparel. And if you've got a small business or organization, I'm going to argue you should use the services of David Bain. I've actually been talking to him this past, not this past weekend, but the weekend previous to that. But Genesis Apparel offers wholesale pricing on custom shirts and hoodies starting at $4.50. They also provide custom packaging at little or no cost to you. You can, if you've got a question, you can contact him at David Bain, BAINE, at genesisapparel.us. So you can check out the website, genesisapparel.us. We also have our newest sponsor, gloryandshine.com. I'm sure you've seen their advertisements all across traditional land, if you will. That's Richard Gratzinger and his wonderful website. And they're doing a fantastic job, of course, but they've got a passion and love for Jesus Christ and the Universal Church. And they put it forth into action by creating natural and supernatural self-care products. Every item, folks, is crafted with deep intention of holding a vision of sharing the gospel through ordinary acts of everyday life. Their products are great for mind, body, and the soul. They are our exclusive sponsor going forward for the next 5 web conferences. So thank you, Richard, and gloryandshine.com. 3 Days of Darkness kit still available. Contact Kathleen Loney at kathleenlloney@gmail.com. Prayers, sacramentals, herbs, in accordance with Catholic prophecy. Kits are $30 plus shipping. Expect lead time to be at least 3 months. So place your order today if you are interested in one of those. And last but not least, Chris Gagne is inviting all Catholics to increase their devotion to the holy souls which have gone before us. It's not just a November 1st thing, not just a November thing. It's an everyday thing, folks, in accordance with 2nd Maccabees, in which we are told that it is what we need to do, if you will, a command by God to pray for those who have gone before us, that they might be loosened from their sins, folks. Of course, this stemming back to Old Testament times. It's always amazing how certain Protestants deny this because they've rooted it out of their quote-unquote Bibles. But in any case, we are getting it started here. But if you want to join the sponsorship team, reach on out to me. I got a few more people prospecting right now. So there's plenty of real estate on tridentcatnight.org or the YouTube channel, which reaches thousands outside the paywall. So we are now ready to go with Ray McConnell. And listen, Ray was born in a strong Catholic family in Kalamazoo, Michigan in 1964. So he is literally a member of the first post-Vatican II generation. His wife is from New Orleans. And she also was raised in the Novus Ordo. Together, they have 7 children, all ranging from 15 to 30. They reside in Saginaw, Michigan. Ray believes that his Catholic life experiences as a fervent truth seeker and a voracious reader can help others struggling through this apostasy. He's also a 5-year stage 4 cancer survivor. And I know he's very excited to get onto the program today, and we've got an awful lot to get through, but perhaps you could pick up and run with that, Ray, in regards to your background, and maybe you could tell us how you ran into my work too as well.
Well, certainly, Eric. Glad to be on the show. Thank you for being so welcoming and encouraging of members of your audience to step forward and join the podcast. I just want to thank you, first of all, for, you've really been, you've had an immense impact through your podcast on my life. You've helped my family and me through, especially this last year of the pandemic and all the Trump stuff and the chaos in this country. And it's been, it's been a tough struggle spiritually and mentally. And I tell people, I think our ancestors suffered physically in this world, and we suffer just as much spiritually and mentally with what we have to deal with in the church and in the world. And your apostolate is a great help. And I'm glad to hear you're getting more and more members. I mean, that's an immense blessing, and I think it shows, God's providence and God's blessing your work. And I think back to when I first became aware of you. It's been, maybe Facebook 5 or 6 years. I don't know, maybe longer than that. And it was funny. I was kind of, I'm not saying uncomfortable, but it was kind of like, and
yes, I have that effect, don't I, Ray?
I'm trying to, well, no, the reason, and I figured it out, but it's like, and it's funny because if you've been, in the traditional Catholic world for decades, like I have been, you're not used to sophisticated marketing. Okay. I mean, you have a marketing background and you're a great marketer, which is, you just don't normally see that. So that kind of like, you're just kind of knocked off your feet when you see that and you experience that from a traditional Catholic. So I think that's why it took me a little while to come around. But the reason I finally subscribed was you were the only one interviewing Father Paul Kramer. You were the only one interviewing Dr. Peter Hanowski about the Fatima, the 2 Sister Lucias, and they were totally black. They'd been blackballed throughout the rest of traditional Catholicism, and I was a longtime Remnant subscriber, Catholic Family News, and why all of a sudden? I mean, I have Father Kramer's The Devil's Final Battle. I have an advanced copy. I've been reading him for decades, and all of a sudden he's not fit to be heard publicly. So that, that set off alarm bells. And then Dr. Hanowski, the 2 Sister Lucias, I first read about that in 2006. In the very first article, I'm not sure if it was the Diamond Brothers, who I used to read. I read a lot of their stuff, or Dr. Marian Horvat of what is it, TIA?
Yeah, TIA, yeah.
Yeah, that was 06. I saw those articles and I was immediately convinced. It was, I had never seen photos of Sister Lucia in the 1930s before. They were all the photos I could recall before seeing those articles were photos of her, of the second one. And if you see, and then of course, this man has gone through all the comparisons with experts that were, that had no, axe to grind about this. They were just independent experts of, handwriting analysis, facial analysis, all this. I didn't need that, but he did it, and he's still, rejected. And you're the only one with you're the only true truth seeker that will give him a voice, give him a platform to speak. So it's just, that alone. And ever since, so the last 2 years I've been a member, I think, and it's just been an immense blessing, and I thank you.
Yeah, no, I truly appreciate that. And, I've been told that before, that I have a certain presence or whatnot. But listen, I think our Lord put me through the business world before this so that I could know what to do, basically. I see a lot of people who, unfortunately, they can't do this work full time. And you'd be surprised. I mean, I'm talking about big names in the traditional world. Like, they literally have like a 9 to 5, and then they're coming home and they're writing an article like every 3 days or whatnot. I mean, I certainly could have done that route, but there's no way I could do this work full time on a regular basis if I didn't have that business background and management and multitasking and all that. So literally with Trad Cat Night, I perform all the functions where I know people at the Remnant, they've got a team, kind of put together. I can kind of do it all. And it's very taxing at times, but I think it's a benefit to everyone. Now, do you find in the traditional world, and again, I'd like to pride myself on not being a part of the commie left, but then also that Zio right aspect, and that's what I saw this past year, at the Catholic Family News and the Remnants and some of these other places, just going too hard with that stuff, Trumpism, if you will. And again,
What's funny, Eric, is that I've been around long enough to remember when the Remnant and Catholic Family News considered themselves blackballed. In the lead up to the second Gulf War in 2003, they were being blackballed by the Zionists, the Crystals, and all the people that were, funding some of the mainstream Catholic organizations at that time. So that's what makes it even, more amusing to see that apparently now they're on the receiving, from what you've said that there's money being given to them. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, they were labeling all the, Crisis Magazine and all these other things that were, pro-war. The, Islam is the only evil in the world, so to speak, and we've got to, have a global war. So this is really, amusing to me that, now they're the ones that are the establishment. So in the Catholic world, supposedly. So that's kind of, wow, you live long enough, you see it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I started this. I mean, literally, I don't know, it was like 7 years or so ago. I was just doing stuff kind of independently under my name. And it was because I used to go into these groups led by Michael Matt and the others too, the Voruses and whatnot. And I would put in quotes by Father Hess, specifically Father Hess, more or less. And I remember Michael Matt pulling them. Michael Matt would pull on him, and towards the end of his life, unfortunately, John Veneri was kind of the same thing. But this actually prompted me to doing this work because I wanted another voice out there because they weren't being fair, they weren't presenting. And again, I'm not a state of a conscience, but you all know, there's sensible state of a conscience here at Trad Cat Night. But I was told, and I've gotten to quite a few spats over the years with Michael Matt privately and on social media, the Chris Ferraras of the world, and they basically, their sentiment to me was, you got to fall in line. This is how you got to. I said, that's not how it's going to be. And I think this is why I ticked off so many people. I'm like, when all is said and done, you're going to fall in line. This is going to be the path. The way of an eagle is the path. You're going to need to fall in line. And again, it goes back to tying in with the dollars or whatnot. And I think you're right there because I've had Father Voigt, who's friends with, who's up there with Michael Matt and some of the other things. And he just tells me, he's told me point blank on the phone, it's due to money.
It's got to be. There's no other reason. Reason.
So let's talk about some of these other areas you want to talk about. I know you want to talk about Barnhart, Bugnoglio. We actually just finished up with Mike talking about that. Brother Bugnoglio actually blocked Mike on Restoring the Faith because
here's the deal. I you will talk to anyone. Mm-hmm. I will read anyone.
Sure.
Because even if I have issues with their personality or some of the things if you've been reading for a long time and you find, I check Barnhart's site every day. She had something great this morning. I mean, mm-hmm. That's my point. And Brother Alexis, I mean, I think he's very, he's a good-willed man, but again, the saints of the past were rejected. I mean, again, they were the ones that were the signs of contradiction. Who knows? So, but he seems to me, to be a very holy man and trying his best, and he was one of the first that came out and said, and you said you were the first about the
day one. Day one, I came out and said
the false renunciation of Pope Benedict XVI. It was you, Father Kramer, and Brother Alexis, and Father Kramer. I remember posted something that Brother Alexis wrote about the renunciation. So, that's, I think, when people are agreeing on 99% of everything, and I see that so much in traditionalist circles where they disagree on one thing and they ostracize each other. It's crazy. Whereas, and I'll tell you, Dr. E. Michael Jones, I've read every one of his books. My father was almost an original subscriber to his
Culture Wars.
Well, and it was Fidelity back in those days.
Oh, okay, back in the day.
I've learned more from that man than probably just about anybody else ever, and I still do. But again, I have some issues with him, especially he's very ambivalent about the Latin Mass, which I don't get that. But and other things I know you've brought up. But I just I've always spoken with everybody, and I've always read all sorts of different things from different perspectives in the church. So I think that's something that's really helped me. But it's just that's as I said, that's why I like your podcast, because you have people on you disagree with, obviously.
Yeah, we want to get all different perspectives on, and yeah, I've learned an awful lot in certain areas. Like Mike, who we just brought on, Mike, I would say Mike and I don't see eye to eye on a decent amount of subjects, as he even admitted in this last podcast we did. But we had a great time. I do learn different points from different traditionalists out there, so that's always good. Now, in regards to your sort of journey, maybe we could kind of rehash that, Vatican II, and getting out of Vatican II, and maybe you can kind of share a little bit more with your past.
Right. I was born in '64, and obviously that was at the height of the council, and I didn't realize until when you're growing up in the '80s, '90s, or whatever, and you're being, you're questioning what's going on in the church. And you're questioning Vatican II, like, why is everything so different? Even though I had no memory of the old Mass, it was gone by the time I was 5 or 6 years old. But I would, you'd question it, and then the people in authority would say, "Oh, you've got to read the documents. You're just basing it on someone's interpretation." Even the conservative, quote unquote, conservative Catholics, "Oh, you got to read the documents. The documents are good. It was just how they were interpreted." So in 1997, I remember it clearly because I was laid up with a broken leg at the time, and I read the documents. I read them, and I had somewhat of an assist from Father Hess, who'd written some articles about them, and then I read through them, and I'm just like, but when I hit Lumen Gentium, which is probably the most infamous of all the documents, I looked at the date it was promulgated, and it was November 24th, 1964, the day I was born. So I was just kind of knocked over. I said, well, maybe God said, I'm going to take this guy and put him in the world at this time, and maybe one day he's going to be a fishbone in the neck of some of these people that are doing all this. So that was, I just got a kick out of it. And but yeah, growing up in the post-Vatican II world and coming of age. And the fact that, I'm 56 and I'm just reflecting, you try to reflect back on your life, especially in the calm of the pandemic, and you're just more reflective and you're thinking everything changed so rapidly. When I was a little kid going to Catholic grade school, everything, the song, I have these songs come into my mind that aren't even sung anymore, but I sang them in church, and it's weird. That first generation of Catholic songs that they came out with for the new Mass, those are pretty much gone. Take Our Bread and all these. I mean, they're in my head, but it's like, they come to my head every once in a while.
I got one in my head, Ray, that I do if my mom, when she bugged me sometimes, is a little much, a little extra, as the kids say. I always do my favorite back in our charismatics day, because there was a period where our family was sort of into the charismatic thing. Again, being from Franciscan, but this actually goes back to when I lived in New Jersey. There's a song called "Let the Fire Fall." So I'll literally run around in the kitchen as I'm making a sandwich or something and start singing that stuff. And I got to have some family members calm me down, but I do it on purpose, of course.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, there's some good ones from the Noah Sordo. But outside of Father S, who are some good influences, both written and just whether Father Malachi Martin or Father Kramer?
That's the thing. God has blessed me, and I look back and I see His providence helping me through my life. And well, first of all, He blessed me with a strong Catholic family on both sides, and we were Novus Ordo. We were very, it was more like you got to be obedient. Back in those, I'm obedient. They took advantage of people's obedience. The modernists did, and they trusted. They trusted. They didn't have the internet. My parents didn't have the internet to find information. They trusted, in the church, and they were raised not to, there was you didn't question, da 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 da. But so they did the best they could. But they knew something was wrong, and they raised us, to question. That's one thing. I've always questioned because my dad, again, he was a charter. He was, on top of things way before anybody else was. He had Enrique Rueda's book on Homosexual Network when it first came out. He was almost a charter subscriber to Fidelity. Michael Jones. He went to Notre Dame. He was at Notre Dame when it was, a great Catholic school, but he saw what happened in Notre Dame and he was really ticked about it. And he was upset about what was going on there. But so I had such a great example, and, it was more of we're not going to, leave the church. We're going to stay and fight. We're Irish Catholic. I'm 100% Irish Catholic on both sides of ancestry. We're going to stay here and we're going to fight. What's going on, and that's what was ingrained in me. And one of the greatest influences on me was when I was in high school, and of course the religion classes were almost just they were just awful. But my senior year, a priest transferred into Kalamazoo named Father Robert Morlino. He was a Jesuit that left. He was teaching in the seminary at Notre Dame, left, and eventually became a diocesan priest in Kalamazoo. He later became Bishop Morlino of Madison, first Helena, Montana, and then Madison, Wisconsin. So this guy comes in and he finds 8 of us. We kind of were friends with him, and he taught us an independent religion class where he taught us Aquinas, introduced us to Aquinas, which, had a huge impact on me because I had no idea, about Aquinas or that kind of thought, that theology, but he helped teach me how to think. With that, and it was just a year, but it had a huge impact on my future. And I'm like, you can just see God put him in my life, and then eventually he becomes a bishop. And I'll tell you one thing: he was a kind of a fascinating character because he would go every December to visit Pope John Paul II in Rome every year. He'd be gone a month. So I always he was always a fascinating character. And then he just passed away a few years ago. But he was a huge impact that helped me. And then, you go through your college years, you go through, and I was kind of double-minded. I tried to be Catholic and worldly at the same time through those years. And I was kind of a wild man in those years, so to speak. But the thing that rocked me, first was when I got married at age 25, and we were expecting our first child in the Dallas area. And I went to one of those baptism classes, you were required to go to a baptism class at this church. And the head of religious education, there's a group of us, and she's talking about original sin. And she said the church doesn't believe in original sin anymore.
Ooh, goodness.
And that rocked me. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was like, what? And then I started questioning her. Everybody else is kind of just sitting there. And I'm like questioning her. And she says, I don't have time to deal with you right now, but I'll recommend a book you can read to get yourself up to speed. And it was Catholicism by Father Richard McBrien. You heard of that book?
I have not, actually.
Well, he was a Notre Dame professor for decades and is out there as you could be. And I think he lived with a woman at Notre Dame. That's what E. Michael Jones said. But that book was infamous in those days. It was known. And I just rolled my eyes. But that woke me up to really the war how infiltrated the church was. And at that time, I subscribed to the Wanderer because my parents subscribed to the Wanderer. And I was like, I need something to read that's going to help me. And that's where I saw an advertisement for Malachi Martin's tapes from Bernard Jansen. I ordered those, and I listened to those, continuously back and forth to work for years. And they're like a new one would come out every year. They're all on YouTube. You talk about it, but I'm listening to this, and and now, looking back, it was so prophetic.
Yeah, I just heard back from Bernard this past hour. He's on the show tomorrow. We're going to be talking the anti-church, the Superforce specifically. So, Bernard will be back on. We'll probably do, we're going to definitely spend some time, at least a half hour, Bernard. But in regards to, maybe you can give us a few minutes in regards to surviving stage 4 cancer. My goodness, walk us through how you got through that on all levels, emotionally, physically, spiritually.
That was it was October of 2014. It was Feast of St. Francis of Assisi. Okay, and we took my family and I took a day trip up to the UP of Michigan to Tequamanon Falls. And first we stopped at the Cross of the Woods at Indian River, said some prayers. And my grandfather was in Detroit. My mother's father was the first contributor to that shrine. It's a shrine right off I-75 in northern Michigan, the largest cross in the world, or whatever, and it was just an idyllic fall day, and it was beautiful. We had a great lunch, and we spent the whole day up there, and then we come back, and just as I'm walking out of the gift store after the Upper Falls, I get this, significant pain in my groin, and I'm like, oh, I've been drinking coffee all day, I've been driving all day, it's probably that. So anyway, long story short, for days it got worse, and I finally went to the doctor, and it swelled up immensely. Wow. And they're thinking, oh, it's a hernia, okay, and you're going to need surgery, emergency surgery for this hernia. So they did surgery on me. I come out of it and they say, well, it wasn't a hernia. We don't know what it was, but we're sending a specimen to get it analyzed and da 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 da. And anyway, it ended up being, they had to send it to the Mayo Clinic because they didn't know what it was. And so it was metastatic melanoma. And then I had another surgery at Ann Arbor, and they did massive surgery on my groin, removed tons of lymph nodes. And then by January, it was stage 4, and it was in my lungs, all throughout my lungs.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're like saying, well, you got 7 to 10 months, and I'm like, okay, I got it. And I didn't react by saying, oh, why me? I never went through that. I was like, my faith was strong enough where I'm like, almost like, why not me? Or whatever, because, it's just, I took it right away as, God, it's from God, and I'm going to do the best I can and try to, get through it. But it was like the first 6 months, every time I had something happen medically, it was like the worst possible scenario. And I'm like, okay, God, I get it. You don't have to hit me over the head with a frying pan. I know where this is going. So 6 months in, they start treating me with an experimental immunotherapy. Well, that was actually like 4 months in, or in January. But the first, it just wasn't. And then the immunotherapy, I was supposed to take 4 courses of it, and it was so toxic that I was in the hospital 2 weeks, almost died. I got diabetes, insulin-dependent diabetes, because it zapped my pancreas. But the good thing is, okay, it zapped my pancreas, and I'm on insulin, but it got rid of the cancer. By October of 2015, I was completely clear of cancer, and I've been that way since.
Unbelievable trial, yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's why I'm like, I tell people, I guess God didn't think I was ready, and I also said, even at the time, God didn't want to let me out that easy.
Oh, right, yeah.
Even then, Eric, you knew. No one would imagine the pandemic, but you just knew we were on the slippery slope. As a this world and the prophecy.
Sure.
You knew we were headed towards dire situation in the world, but you just didn't know the form it would take. And so when I would say that, people would laugh, and I'd say, yeah, it's funny, but I'm really not kidding, because I know we're going to be going through some tough times. And And God, I guess, figured he wanted me around for at least, some of it.
Yeah. No, I know that's one of the other areas you want to talk about, just today in general, the lack of supernatural faith, but specifically with our young people just not being well read. And, just in general, too, I try to do a lot of non-Catholic outlets in regards to media appearances. And my recent one I did over at Israeli News Live, which had like 25,000 views after half a day. It was deemed by the owner, Steve, being too Catholic, and then he ran anti-Catholic hit piece the following day, which prompted me to tell him that I would debate him live anywhere, anytime on the matter. But the point is, these people just don't know they don't know history. They don't know church history.
And I'll tell you, last year, Eric, I read Butler's Lives of the Saints, the original 1833 version. That was my reading project for last year, okay? And I had bought Butler's Lives of the Saints years ago, a nice, hardcover, and I didn't know at the time, but it was the modernists had gone through it and eliminated the supernatural, or when there was something really supernatural. Well, we really don't know for sure that this actually. I'm reading this thing and just getting sick. They totally butchered Butler's Lives of the Saints. So I said, obviously, if they butchered it, the original's got to be amazing. But Loretto Publications finally, providentially came out with, the last couple of years, they published the original, a new, they just republished it. So I read through that last year, and almost every day there were martyrs. You're learning so much history, through that. So then, that what a thing to be reading during the pandemic. And the way all these martyrs, whether it be 100 AD, 1500 AD, they were all, they're all the same as far as how they go to their death. Some of them are like, hurry up. I want to go to hell. They were like, talk about the supernatural faith they had. And you're reading this and you just realize how, this world is 180 degrees from that. Mm-hmm. And how do you communicate that to your kids or to anybody, what the faith really is, that supernatural faith, unless you're reading and you're studying and I call myself a college educated autodidact because I didn't learn much in college, but I've learned tons studying on my own and reading, but nobody reads. I look at my kids and I like, their whole generation, and that's by design, of course. Mm-hmm. They don't read. And it's, I don't know. I can't even imagine where I'd be without the reading I've done throughout my life. But the podcasts are great. Thank God for the podcasts. I haven't watched television in years, and I've been trying to wean them off that too. My kids and my family off that, and it's some work pretty well, but they still watch it somewhat. But that's again programming. Why do they call it programming?
Right, that's it.
I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's the constant battle, the constant battle. And I think back and I remember, I tell people, what the worst thing our parents had to worry about when we were growing up was what albums we were listening to, and we just this technology came at us like a wave from like a tsunami, all of a sudden. It's like there's no preparing for it. It came at us so much, so quickly and rapidly. And we've got 7 kids ages 15 to 30, and it's just every day it's a battle.
Yeah, no, I think about the same thing too. Technology has advanced to the point where it's not only independent of us; they're trying to incorporate it in us. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Exactly. And then you're a conspiracy theorist if you point it out. I've been called a conspiracy theorist since the 90s, and I'm thinking, man, in the 90s, even the wildest conspiracy theorists couldn't have imagined this world we're living in. Mm-hmm. I'm serious. And I remember and then the church. I remember when we got upset that John Paul II allowed altar girls like that. That was not good, but that was like one of the biggest controversies. That was back in '94. You know what I mean? And we're just like, well, it can't get much. I remember in the '90s, it can't get much worse than this. The Clintons. Oh, it can't get much worse than this in the United States with the Clintons. And I'm thinking at the time, I've got these little kids. And I'm thinking, hopefully we'll go through all the worst stuff before they grow up, get to adulthood. Now, of course. And Malachi Martin's, I'm listening to him the whole time. He's saying these kids have seen the best of America. They're not, they've seen, I listen to him so much. It's ingrained in my brain, all the things he said. When the Son of Man, he repeated over and over, when the Son of Man comes back, will he find faith on earth? He said that. I shudder when I read that. He said that. And I'm thinking, we're living that literally right now. And he talked about the heretical Pope. He said, when that I can't even imagine how bad it'll be when there's a total heretic Pope. I can't even imagine. He said that. I can't imagine how bad it will be. These popes are bad. He got more and more critical of Pope John Paul II with each tape. I remember that. He went from, you could tell he was, and then of course he's under attack. He's under attack as some Jewish agent, and all that stuff. Well, I don't know I can't speak for what he did at Vatican II, but all I know was in the 90s he was a prophet, and I read his books as well. You talk about Windswept House, but The Keys of His Blood was amazing as well. That book was amazing.
Yeah, no, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think I have all of them, but yeah, certainly got to get those in the library. Now, a lot of people don't know this. We only got a few minutes left here, Ray, and we certainly want to invite you back next month. But a lot of people don't know. So you made an appearance on with Steve Skocek some years ago, I believe. Maybe. We were friends on Facebook, and I was public about what I was going through. I thought it would help. Again, like doing this. Sure.
I'm a poor sinner, believe me. But I believe I have something to offer. And when I was going through cancer, I thought it would be helpful to other people suffering with cancer, or whoever, to hear it from someone who's trying his best to be the best Catholic he can be going through cancer. And Steve, God bless him. He asked me to be on his podcast, and I did it. It's funny. I never listened to it. I've never listened to that, but I had a lot of people, I shared it with a lot of people, and I had a lot of people tell me it really helped them. And, you're almost like, Richard Nixon. I read his biography when I was in grade school. He said, I never watched me on television. I didn't want to watch myself on television because I figured if I did, it would affect me, in the future, because I would get real self-conscious about it. So, maybe I'm following his lead.
Yeah, no, good stuff.
I have my issues with Steve now. I mean, I know you go way back with him, but it's like he's on Twitter. I mean, I like to. Twitter's my source of news, so I look at it. I don't post that much, but I can't believe how many times he posts and what he's just constantly. I don't know how he finds time to do anything else. Really.
I don't know. Listen, I've been open to bringing anyone on the program, but I mean, Steve's definitely an interesting character.
Have you ever invited him, or he just won't talk to you? Probably.
No, we definitely. There's no communication at this point. But I went to school with Steve, so I know who he was, where he's coming from, and it's really no difference between what he was like in college to now, really, in all honesty. So it is what it is. But listen, we're going to continue to move along. We're definitely going to invite Ray back onto the program next month. We'll perhaps tackle another topic or two within the world of traditionalism. But it was good to get an opening podcast in with Ray so we could get to know him. Ray, I don't know if you got any parting words. I mean, we always allow for shameless self-promotion time. So I don't know if you want to throw out your social media or what, something that you want to advocate or.
I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and I didn't jump to all the other sites because I was just I can only handle so much. I'm 56, and I've been my memory's not the best like it used to be because of all the stuff I went through. So I'm going to be the old-fashioned Facebook and Twitter guy. And Ray P. McConnell, I think you can find me real easy. Saginaw, Michigan. I mean, and I'm certainly, if I can tell you, I have tons of friends on Facebook, and a lot of them are Catholics who have friended me, over the years.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I'm more than willing to accept people's friendships on there, and and Twitter follows obviously, and I'm glad. I'm glad this went so well, and I prayed beforehand, just like I did before Steve's podcast years ago. I just prayed that I would say the right things that God wanted me to say to help souls. That's all I care about.
No, that's what we want. We want these shows to be raw, uncut. There's nothing like teleprompted here or pieced together. That's one of the things that also the other thing that I like to pride myself on is all my shows are raw and uncut. I don't do any like, cutting out and trying to do this with the audio or cut this out of what someone said. Or, I mean, they're as is, folks, with my shows, with special guest shows. So, unfortunately, from time to time, you're going to get a goober to curse every once in a while, every once in a while, which is always irritates.
Mention real quick is that was on my mind because I heard her Saturday, Dr. Carrie Madej, and I love her. I love everything. But she said something that I've been thinking about ever since, and it was the people running this pandemic and all the evil are not that smart and and they make mistakes and things don't always go the way they plan. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I agree with that. But I say always remember that ultimately Satan is running this show, and he was the greatest intelligence created by God. So even if his minions don't do it all right, he's always there. And I'm just, nobody expected 9/11. Nobody expected the pandemic other than the people that put it on. but I'm just saying that, we're dealing with a preternatural intelligence, and with everything we're just in a lull. We're just in a respite. And we're in the eye of the hurricane, I think, right now, and we're about to get hit by the
Yes. Yeah, I was about to say that. I think we're in for a doozy of a spring, to put it mildly. So we'll have to see. Who knows? Maybe by this upcoming week, we could be on full-scale lockdown. Remember how quickly it happened that first go-around? Exactly. I was one of the first states here in Ohio. It was like within a matter of 48 to 72 hours, we were on lockdown. And I was like, whoop, it was a wake up call for me. I was like, I'm not ready, prepping wise, materially prepping wise. Like I wasn't ready. I didn't feel comfortable at that point. So I think it's been a blessing in disguise.
The worst of the COVIDian slave states is Michigan. Okay.
Oh yeah. Michigan is horrible. Yeah. You guys got to deal with that freaking communist. Although I'm going to argue DeWine's probably not too far behind yours, but yeah.
No, and that's the funny thing, that it's two, the two quote unquote parties are, one party with two evil heads.
Yeah,
so you're not going to escape. They always talk about Florida and Texas, and okay, well, they might skate for a while, but they're gonna get hammered probably worse than us eventually. That they won't be allowed to continue that way.
No doubt about it. Well, Ray, we appreciate your time. Hang off air here. We'll get you set up with a date next month. And folks, in conclusion here, again, we want to thank Ray, but don't forget about the Marie Julie Jaheny movie on Vimeo, vimeo.com. Type in 3 Days of Darkness. We get people to view that film every day now. Continue to invite your friends, family members on over here. Again, this needs to grow via word of mouth. There are gift subscriptions available too. So if you know a Novus Ordo priest or someone who's on sort of the fence with tradition and quote unquote conspiracy, get them a gift subscription. Have them try it out for a month, and you'd be surprised. We have a very high retention rate here at Trad Cat Night. Not only that, but what I'm noticing a trend too is people who will try for like a month or two and they're like, they have that kind of response. And then they come back about a half a year later and they're like, yeah, you were right. There's really nothing else out there like what we're doing here, because there isn't. And I think that we provide some fresh perspectives here. And I'm trying to keep everyone here.
Eric, I say one thing about that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I was talking to my brother, and he, when I first subscribed, I had subscribed for a month. And he said something negative about you or something like that. And I said, okay, I'm going to not renew. I'm not going to renew. So I didn't renew, or I clicked on not renew. And then I listened to one day of your podcast and I says, what am I thinking? I've got to renew this.
Right. No, it is. I mean,
and I'm just like, and again, he was like, oh, I didn't agree with him. He's a flat earther. And he didn't agree with something. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna renew. And then it was just funny. I figured you'd get a kick out of that, and I've renewed ever since.
Yeah, no. I like to pride ourselves on being like a golden corral. People can come here day in, day out and kind of find what podcasts are looking for. I do my own premium podcast. There's general content that goes up. I got a ton of information up yesterday. So yeah, we're trying to provide trying to give everyone fresh perspectives from what the usual is in the supposed traditional world with like the remnant. I mean, I've always labeled it kind of like the vanilla world. And again, I'm not trying to push this down the path of like individualism or individualistic or whatnot, but I do find some of these websites to just be kind of dry to me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I got a little little spice in me or whatnot, but with some of these sites, I just find them to be quite boring, to be honest with you. So we like to have a little bit of fun here. In any case, we're going to conclude there. Today we got to get ready for Alex Newman now, Liberty Sentinel here in about 10 minutes. So we're going to conclude there, folks. Until next time, stay safe and God bless.